again, we model at our group intensive treatment, we model a school-like setting, right? Where they're in a school, they're practicing these strategies. So it's important, we provide report cards at the end of each day. I'm sure other group treatments also provide, some insight into what they're doing. And so it's what we did that can then potentially translate into some other environments. So a lot of times we'll have like school consultations, or we'll meet with teachers afterwards, if parents request that. And we'll talk about, hey, this is what your child did at our group intensive treatment, which again models a school-like setting. This shows where they can get to with the right type of strategies. And so then it allows us to kind of tweak either like their IEP, 504 plan. We add certain accommodations in that school environment that can then make so many strides for them. So again, yes, the group intensive is so important, but it's how they succeed in there, and then how we can take how they succeeded into all their other environments. And like you're saying, we model, so many other types of activities where they can now implement more play dates, get-togethers with their peers, because we're doing these type of activities, in a structured way. And we know structure, routine, consistency, predictability, all those things are really helpful for our kids. So again, all these activities are important in the moment, but it's also important to carry out with us afterwards as well.
No, those are really good points. And something else I want our listeners to hear, with the programs that you go to, being in a group treatment allows the clinicians to see your child in a group. When you go for one-on-one therapy, that's amazing. And you're tweaking it and you're giving goals and you're working on it for sure. I mean, you have to do therapy for building coping skills, lowering anxiety, training parents. You've got to do that. But the group treatment allows us to see your child in a group. And because SM, and listeners, quote me, because SM is a social communication anxiety, where mutism is a symptom, it allows us to see these children in a group, to see how those whys are affecting them in groups, how they're responding, how they're reacting. We will pick up on whys that weren't ever known. For example, we have kids that may have some subtle processing or learning issues. We see it in the group. We see how they respond a little more sometimes than in one-on-one, although you can pick it up. But in a group, you can see, are these kids understanding that social puzzle, the social nuances? We have some older teens that the child was selectively mute. Their 15-year-old has been mute for years, doesn't seem to be verbal with peers. We see them in a group and we see, wow, he's really struggling with that social puzzle, the nuances. And we've had kids diagnosed with autism. We've recommended ASD testing, high functioning autism, and that explains a lot. We've picked up on ADHD in situations, and all of these whys, ADHD, ASD, processing learning difficulties, they really affect social communication. So if you're giving brave stickers to talk and they're not there yet, and they're not able to because of these whys, then what are you doing? And so it's really important that these whys are really understood for each of these kids, because how you implement the strategies is going to change based on your whys, based on where they are on the bridge. And that's what it is. It's not just go up and be brave to ask a question, because these kids are brave just walking in. They're brave handing money to a store clerk at times. They're brave saying hello. They're brave going up and asking a question. It's where they are and moving. So courage is not always loud.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, there's so much to say. And I guess I get excited because it's that time of year. And CommuniCamp for me is the most rewarding experience, seeing parents learn and change, seeing kids change and connect and build friendships and feel confident, and seeing that hope where they're running out the last day and they come in the first day and they're more timid or they're not as sure, and you see that evolution in such a short period of time. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Also, when you are looking into programs, please ask about the experience of the parent. How long is parent education, and what are the experience of the educators? Because it's really important that whoever is obviously educating you really has been in this and knows how to do it, because it isn't a one size fits all. And that's an important question too, because you may be a family that wants that connection, wants the parent education and support to be a big part of this for you so that you can feel calm and hopeful and learn the skills. And that's really important. One thing I'd like you to like kind of talk about is, what does progress look like for some kids? I mean, it could be kids that are shut down or nonverbal, but progress through transitional into verbal responsiveness. It
Mhm.
could be kids that have a lot of emotional dysregulation, but learn how to calm and lower their anxiety. How
Yeah.
about you? What other things, like the insight they learn?
Yeah, I would say that, especially as, for some of our older kids into teens, it's the cognitive kind of the way that they can restructure and they can think through their thoughts and they can again put words to their feelings, like learning that feelings chart where they can implement, and then having us teach that to the parents and the parent training, and then seeing how they can adapt that evening of like, rather than saying like, come on, you got to do it, check in with their feelings, and maybe that makes a world of a difference. So to me, it's, yeah, definitely that increase of that cognitive understanding from both a parent standpoint and from an older child teen standpoint. I think it's also, for a lot of our kids, and I know I keep saying this, but it's really those stronger peer relationships that I think are really important, because so many of our kids feel isolated. So many of our kids don't feel comfortable initiating, expanding with their relationships. They don't, maybe, and again, those nuanced whys could be playing a factor of maybe they don't know how to engage, maybe they don't feel comfortable initiating or asking a friend to play, so they're kind of sitting on the side. So those stronger peer relationships make such a difference, because again, that really impacts our confidence, our comfort, our self-esteem. They also develop a lot more independence and like I said, that confidence, because the kids are now in their rooms doing these things, practicing without their parents there, and they're making such progress. So they're building those independent skills. And I would also say it also provides, for some of our kids, especially those kids that maybe have some sensory challenges or other underlying whys, whether again, maybe they have some underlying like neurodivergence, whether it's ADHD, autism. Sometimes our kids have some trouble with like emotion regulation, and it could definitely improve some of those aspects as well. Again, with like checking in with their feelings, meeting them where they're at, so not pushing them too far, but also pushing them enough where they're working on strategies. The amount of times that we get IEP or 504 plans and we're looking at it and it just will say, don't ask the child anything. And it's so sad, because our kids want to be asked questions, but it's more about how we're asking, where we're asking, when we're asking, what we're asking, right? Those are always like those WH questions we talk about, because we want our kids to engage. We don't want families to think that we don't want, people to ask them questions, but it's more that kind of happy medium where we want to push them a little bit where we know they can reach that, that point. And again, that's where CommuniCamp helps us know like what strategies help move them forward. But we also don't want to push too much where it creates more of that avoidance or it's too far. So it's that medium of like, how much do we want to push? But I would say that when we meet them where they're at, and we know we meet with every family before we see them. So we know what that happy medium looks like for a lot of our kids. The amount of confidence and comfort that's progressed for our kids, is really important. And that also increases participation, because if they have that comfort before, the talking piece, or they build that confidence, it moves them across in so many different avenues. So to me, I know those are like a lot of different ideas, but to me, that's really what progress can look like. Is there's so many nuances that I think are important to think about. And remembering that all of our kids and teens are different, and progress, for some kids, they maybe have never been in school before and they're homeschooled. And again, remember, we've done this throughout COVID as well. So we're used to kids maybe not engaging as much, in the social environment. And think about progress could also just be stepping foot onto the grounds and being in that environment where they're surrounded by same age peers for the first time. So sometimes it's looking up, starting to participate, starting to observe, just hearing kind of what's around them. Again, we're always navigating, progressing across the bridge and what that looks like for your child. But I would say the biggest piece is really that confidence piece, that comfort piece, the connection piece that precedes that communication. So those are all things that, to me, are super important to group intensive treatment.
And the hope,
And
the hope. That's a big thing for families when you go to these intensive group treatments, is you feel the hope, you feel the sense of, wow, I can do this. My child is doing this.
Yeah.
we have a really great place to go. And, working with whomever it is you're working with, whatever center you're working with, to continue all that momentum. And we have families that go to multiple camps. I worked with a family just yesterday who had been to a camp actually a year ago. And they're like, she made such strides. We're ready for the next place. We're ready to go. Like, she's done amazing. And it's such a confidence booster. So she's enrolling for July camp. And I'm so happy because it really fuels them. It's kind of like a diving board.
Kids that will say like, I want to go back, I want to go back, and or like on that Monday they're like, I want to be at camp forever. It's really awesome to see. So I think group intensive treatment, again, no matter which one you choose, but we could obviously only speak to CommuniCamp, but I think it just, the amount of community that it creates is so, it's so important.
And for parents, when you're looking into these different programs, here are some questions to ask. How many hours of intensive group treatment? How many hours for the parents are they getting? Who is leading parent education and support? Do they need to speak to go to that camp? What is the approach to treatment? And are you comfortable with that approach? Who are the clinicians working directly with your children? Are they undergraduates? Are like, who are they? Are they clinicians? Are they master level, doctoral level? Who are those counselors? And do these programs offer support for you? Financial assistance, grants, travel expense. At CommuniCamp, there's an organization called Host for Hospitals where families can travel in and they stay at someone's home for really low cost. We offer tremendous financial assistance for families if they qualify. And right now, and we usually have this going until it runs out, is a $500 grant for families that make under $150,000. So all of these things, when you kind of add up the amount of treatment, like for us, 30 hours of direct care for parents and children, 15 for parents plus and 15 plus for children. That's a lot of therapy. And they're hearing from experts. They're working with clinicians, with most of them masters and doctoral level or licensed clinicians, but they're very trained. We always have very trained clinicians in the room, and it's a broad range for us. So we do have 3-year-olds up to 17 plus. We say plus because sometimes an 18 or 19-year-old, depending on developmentally where they're at, usually a little younger, so we'll accept them into the teen program. We divide up the teen program into more functioning teens that are more verbal, responsive, initiative, elaborative, versus some teens that are really struggling with even verbal communication. So we meet those kids, all the age children, where they're at. And so it's fun, it's hopeful, it's connection, it's confidence, it's excitement. And that's what we want you to get from any intensive group. It really gives you that sense of community where you don't feel alone and you get it and you begin to understand. So if you have questions, please reach out to us. You can reach out if you have questions on selective mutism in general. You can certainly reach out to Smart Center at selectivemutismcenter.org. If you have questions on CommuniCamp at selectivemutismcenter.org, 215-887-5748. We have lots of resources. Please go to our website, selectivemutismcenter.org. Look at our blogs. We write tons of them. Please listen to our podcast. You're going to get such an understanding of SM from a social communication standpoint. I'm just so passionate, and it's just the most rewarding career because you see such change in people. So it's incredible. Anything else you want to say since I just rambled on?
No, I just think that I'm really happy that we did a podcast like this where we can kind of talk about, a group intensive treatment and the importance of that. And the last thing I'll say too is one of the other things I love about, our specific group intensive treatment is we do have like a parent panel where we have parents who have experienced CommuniCamp and or some teens that have experienced CommuniCamp and or our treatment, and they speak to their successes and kind of where they are currently. And to me, that's one of the most rewarding parts about the experience is actually hearing from people that have gone through that process, who you see on the other side. And again, we are so passionate and can talk about so many ways to make strides. But to me, it's so important to also hear it from the actual people that have gone through that process. So I think that's a lot of the feedback I've heard from some of my families. I have some current clients that I see that, are on that parent panel who've seen their child overcome. So it's very, very, very incredible to see. And I think it also, and if you're maybe a parent who's like, wow, I'm definitely someone who's like passionate like that, I want to get there, it gives the confidence for the parents to also see, wow, I'm finally here. I'm actually talking to other parents, giving them that guidance. So we have so many ways that we try to connect families with some of our prior families, because I know that it's important to also hear from that experience as well. So I just wanted to add that. But yeah, I hope this was really helpful. And, again, my hope is that you learned a little bit more about why group intensive is so important, in addition to obviously all the other treatments that are part of your journey. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, listeners. Thank you so much.